She's one of the funniest and sweetest women in show business. My beloved friend, Miss Phyllis Diller. Phyllis Diller was the first woman stand-up comedian in the United States to really make it big. When I initially got to Hollywood, I could have gotten major roles too. But I couldn't stand Silicone, a well-known person who changed the way people think about humor by making her appearance, marriage, and unhappiness into jokes. But she was keeping stuff from him. You've been through some hard situations in your life. How have you been able to keep your spirits up and stay positive? It's a habit to keep a positive attitude and a way of thinking. For over 30 years, she took the same private trip to see someone she could never talk about in public. Phyllis Diller concealed her biggest secret for her whole life because of the pain that followed those trips in 1993. She only told it after she died. The strange kid who played the piano at funerals. Fans always anticipated Phyllis Diller to make fun of her kids when she went on stage. They assumed she had 4 children. Everything was fair game for her act. She had 5. The 5th was a secret. She never talked about, joked about, or publicly acknowledged her daughter. She drove to see her alone every Sunday. No photographers, no questions. For more than 30 years, this was the one thing in her life that she wouldn't write about. She learned early on that pain may be useful. She was born on July 17, 1917, in Lima, Ohio, to a 55-year-old father and a 36-year-old mother. She grew up in a family where there was always silence and death was common. There were always aged individuals in the residence. Sam, her father's oldest brother, fought for the Confederacy. That's how long they had been alive. Death became normal since funerals happened so often. She had been to more funerals than birthday celebrations by the time she was 10. She thought it was strangely interesting. The tears, the flowers, and the cosmetics on lifeless faces. She researched death, made mental notes, and found humor in the dark while other kids were scared of it. Her comedy would be built on her ease with the morbid. School was terrible. Her mother sewed all of her outfits by hand. Phyllis pinned bits of fur around the hem of her garment when it became popular. Her teacher made her stand up in front of the class. "What is that?" the voice said with contempt. The other youngsters giggled. Phyllis recalled every second. Years later, she had written about this event. She made everything into substance. She used music to get away. At the age of 10, she was accepted into the Sherwood Music Conservatory in Chicago. A kid from Lima is learning from pros. She could play songs that made people stop and listen. But the loneliness never went away. She started thinking up stories to keep herself busy in that silent house with sick family members. Small stories about the individuals she knew. As time went on, they got funnier and started to sound like punchlines. She didn't know it yet, but she was already converting her misery into comedy and composing her act. Everything fell apart during the Great Depression. In 1930, Lima, Ohio looked like every other American town that was losing its future. Banks shut down and businesses ran out of goods. Her family had lost everything. At 13, Phyllis began selling newspapers on the street. Each paper made a few cents. Coins that bought food. They didn't have the money to pay for the Sherwood Music Conservatory anymore. 3 years of training and 3 years of ambitions came to an end in 1933, not with a graduation but with a letter saying she couldn't come back. She was only 16, but her career as a professional musician was already ended. She worked any job that would hire her, whatever pays, like cleaning houses, writing ads, or filing papers. The last name of the family wasn't even real. It had been Tribber for a long time, but for some reason, no one knew why. She didn't find out about this till she was an adult. They even borrowed their name. In 1935, Bluffton College felt like a second opportunity. This time, music education was something she could utilize to teach. That's when Sherwood Diller showed up. He drove his mother's car to their first date and paid for dinner with her money. He didn't have a job or a degree. He dropped out, saying that his teachers didn't know as much as he did. Every logical thought prompted her to run. He was 26 years old and lived with his parents. His huge plans never came to anything. His mom still bought him clothes. But the depression made everyone feel hopeless. Getting married means staying alive. 2 people could survive for less than 1. She told herself that. In 1939, they ran away together. She was 22 years old. He told her he would give her everything, a house, kids, and safety. Sherwood always seemed to be on the verge of success. The next plan would work. The next job would last. She dropped out of college again. There was no turning back this time. She learned the reality after a few months. Sherwood couldn't keep a job for more than 2 weeks. He would come in late, fight with his supervisors, quit in a big way, and then sit at home, plotting his next failure while she figured out how to pay the rent. She had given up her piano bench for a kitchen sink and concert halls for dirty dishes. The girl who used to play with orchestras was now merely a housewife in Michigan. Another victim of the despair. Another woman whose hopes and goals perished. Young, 5 kids, food assistants, and a spouse who wouldn't work, she believed that getting married and having kids would make everything better. Peter came on September 27, 1940. During wartime rationing, Sherwood worked at a bomber plant in Ypsilanti, Michigan, where they lived. He made $25 a week. Rent was less than butter. People exchanged sugar like drugs. Mothers who had just given birth got more milk. She lived off of them. 3 weeks after giving birth, I got postpartum depression. She couldn't move some mornings. The infant cried. When Sherwood did go to work, he left. He didn't care most days. She would lie there and do maths in her brain, attempting to make $25 last for 7 days and then 5 kids. The figures never added up. They changed homes 8 times from 1940 to 1945. Each address was smaller and less expensive than the last. Sherwood couldn't retain a job for more than 6 months. The Alamo Naval Air Station in California was supposed to make things better. It didn't. Sally came in 1944, which meant 2 kids and yet the same $25 a week on good weeks. The first deceased. Baby came in 1945. 2 weeks old, born too soon, and with lungs that aren't fully developed. The doctors said that these things happen. She was 28 years old and buried a child in a cemetery she never went back to. She went home, cooked dinner, and pretended like everything was normal. The next week, I started writing for local publications. I got $2 for each piece and 50 cents for each ad. Money was money. She had 5 kids by 1952. Every pregnancy was riskier. Every birth is a risk. Every child was someone Sherwood wouldn't help. He has rules regarding how to work. He thought manual work was beneath him. It was embarrassing to sell things. All of the jobs were wrong except for the ones that didn't exist. In 1950, Sherwood got $10,000 from a dead relative as an inheritance, enough to buy a property without a loan, enough to begin again. He lost it all in 11 months because of lousy investments, failing business plans, and loans to persons who vanished. The eviction notice came, asking for $300 in back rent, and she found out then. 5 kids under the age of 12. No plan. Food stamps became a normal part of life. Milk powder that it tasted like punishment. Cheese from the government that you had to chew like gum. She would wait in queue with other broken moms. 1 child on her hip. The older youngsters practiced staying quiet. She made about $15 a week from her newspaper business and sometimes $20. She wrote at night after the kids went to bed. She wrote essays about cooking meals she had never tasted and decorating homes she would never own. If they bought the story, editors paid to dollars. A lot of them didn't. The letters of rejection piled up next to the payments that weren't paid. She utilized them as scrap paper because she didn't want to waste anything, even failure. The book of magic that changed everything. In 1952, they saved their lives by saving $75 a week. Cry in Oakland, California required a writer. She got the job. Money that is real. Money that stays the same. Enough to pay the energy bill on time, rent a tiny house, and buy real milk. She made a 15-minute section called Phyllis Diller, the homely friend maker. Someone made a mistake when they typed the name. She held on to it. The show presented recommendations for the home that were really jokes. How to cook dinner with nothing. How to use humor to hide being poor. The station liked it, but mistakes in editing ruined it. The tapes never played. Another failure to add to the pile. The Veterans Hospital in San Francisco needed something to do. She offered to help, brought her piano music, and made an entire set. From the first note, the patients made fun of her. Play something nice. My grandma plays better. Who let her in? She kept playing, kept smiling, and finished the set. Then she drove to her car and cried for an hour. The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol altered everything. She read it throughout her breaks at work. Thoughts had power, the text asserted. Imagining things made them real. She imagined a white feather cape wrapping around her and keeping her safe. Nothing bad could get through it. Sherwood had been campaigning for years. "You are funnier than Bob Hope and Jack Benny. Go up on stage. Make us wealthy." He didn't want her to do well. He wanted her to make money. She began to write down the truth about her life. 5 kids, no money, and a spouse who doesn't help. But she made it hilarious and relatable. The material came effortlessly. Every dinner that burned was a joke. Every bounced check turned into a narrative. Each time when Sherwood quit, he got a new job that he did all the time. While the kids were asleep, she practiced in the bathroom mirror, memorized the timing, pauses that are just right. The woman in the mirror didn't seem like she was 37. She looked 50 years old, tired, lost, great for humor. Everything changed on March 7, 1955. The Purple Onion in San Francisco required someone to work for 2 weeks. She tried out and told jokes about how her cuisine killed people, how her husband was useless, and how her kids drove her nuts. The booker laughed and asked if she could start that night. She said yes without thinking. She donned an outfit from Goodwill on the first night. No makeup and hair that wasn't even combed. She looked just like what she was, an exhausted mom who had given up on trying to be pretty. People in the audience loved it. They saw their wives, their moms, and themselves. The TWO engagement lasted 89 weeks, which is the longest in the club's history. The night that made a star, the Purple Onion was on Columbus Avenue in North Beach, San Francisco. Small basement club with brick walls and a maximum of 80 seats. The 7th of March 1950. At 37 years old, Phyllis Diller stepped down those stairs. She had never done stand-up comedy for a living before. She was taking the place of someone who had to cancel. They said 2 weeks, maybe less if she failed. She wore a house dress that she got at Goodwill for $3. No special makeup, and her hair was pinned back like she was going to scrub a toilet. She looked just like what she was, a mother of 5 who hadn't slept well in 15 years. The audience watched her hobbling to the microphone and thought she might sing folk tunes or maybe read poetry. What they got was pure anger that looked like jokes. She had been reading the Claude Bristol book for months, imagining herself doing well and keeping herself safe with that fake white feather cape. Now she was on stage ruining her own life for the enjoyment of strangers. Her voice rang out across the little room, high-pitched and frantic, like some in a drowning who thought it was funny to drown. The people in the audience couldn't breathe. These weren't just jokes. They were admissions. Every lady in that room has been tired before. Every man knew who his wife was. She talked about her body like it was a broken piece of equipment. She thought her marriage was like a prison term. Her kids were like gorgeous disasters. A month passed, and then 2 weeks. A month turned into 6 months. The owner continued giving her more time. People in San Francisco heard about it. You had to see this housewife who turned her hate for herself into art. There were lines outside. The club had never seen anything like it before. For 89 weeks in a row, she did 5 shows on the weekends and 3 on weeknights. The Purple Onion made more than $100,000 from her run. She got $100 a week, the same amount of money she could have made by typing letters. But something else took place. People looking for talent began to show up. TV producers from LA and newspaper critics from New York. Everyone came to watch the woman who turned bad things into funny things. In October 1955, Jack Parr's talent coordinator saw her. That night, "I called New York. There is a housewife here who is doing things that no one has ever done. She looks awful, sounds worse. People love her." She was on national TV 2 weeks later. A lot of people saw this weird woman with a distressed voice talk about her failures. They adored her too. The Purple Onion run came to an end in November 1956. She had done more than 500 concerts in that basement, telling the same jokes in various ways every night. She learned what worked, what didn't, what made people uncomfortable, and what made them laugh. She was a totally different person when she left the club than when she walked down the stairs. She wasn't a housewife who told jokes anymore. She was a comedian who just so happened to have 5 kids, making her the funniest lady in comedy. A wig was the first step in the change. Wild horsehair that looked like it had been shocked. It cost $50 in 1956, which was more than she spent on groceries in a month, but she bought it nevertheless. Then one more, then another. In a year, she had 50 wigs, and they all got uglier. She put on clown makeup that made her look like she was giving up. Thick white foundation, lipstick drawn past her real lips, eyebrows plucked and then pulled back the wrong way. Every night for 2 hours, she made herself look crazy. People laughed more the worse she appeared. She couldn't afford beauty. Ugly was free. The cigarette holder was 12 inches long and made of ivory. It came from a pawn store. She never smoked and loathed cigarettes. But every male comic had a prop. George Burns smoked his cigar. Bob Hope had his golf club. She needed something. The holder turned into a weapon. She had pointed at the crowd like a weapon. Wave it like a wand. Use it to point out every mistake she has made in her life. Her clothes came from all around and didn't